Classes in session, college football hitting the book show Monday, January 5th, the first show, college football, that is, of the new year. Happy New Year to everybody. Best wishes in 2026. Ian Cameron, Connor Mack with you. And this is going to be maybe the shortest Monday edition of the college football hitting the book show we've done all season, because we're only talking 2 games, and it is the college football playoff semifinals this week, Thursday and Friday. Oh boy, am I looking forward to it. It's, you know what I love about this, CMAC? Just, we'll get into the matchups, the X's and O's. We'll break down the stats. We'll crunch the numbers. We'll do all that good shit like we always do when we preview these games in a moment. But what I just love is it's a breath of fresh air with these 4 teams still standing. We got a little fresh blood, new faces, new teams, in there. We got Oregon, Indiana in the one semifinal, Miami and Ole Miss in the other semifinal. There's no Ohio State. There's no Alabama. There's no Georgia. Notre Dame's out. I mean, it's just when they never made the playoffs. But you know what I mean? The usual suspects of teams buzzing around national championship contention year in and year out. They're all out. They're all by the wayside now. We've got pretty much, some new faces, new programs getting opportunities now this deep into the season and into the playoff to win a national title, to win a natty. I think it's cool. I think it's good for the sport. Got a little bit of fresh blood, if you will, in the semifinal round, CMAC. What do you think about that?
I love it. I mean, shit. I just love college football, so I'm fucking happy no matter what. And I think Indiana was a surprise. Of course, Miami, but these are still Miami, pretty big football school, But, yeah, I love it. We got to get into these games. What happened last week, for sure.
Well,
I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, no doubt. Last week, I mean, certainly Miami's defense was dominant. That's the main theme in their win against Ohio State. Their D-line the game. Julian Sayin was under pressure. He was disrupted. He couldn't stand in the pocket and deliver downfield, to Tate, Carnell Tate, and Smith, of course, and Jeremiah Smith and all those great receivers. And that was the difference. And not to mention, I thought Miami's offensive line, which people thought was kind of the weak link, they got Fletcher going on the ground. And they
did.
Against that that's supposed to be mighty Ohio State defensive line. Miami kind of pushed them around at times, and Fletcher got going on the ground, and they controlled the flow. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They kept Ohio State's offense off the field, and give them credit, all the credit to Miami for that win.
No, that's a full 3-phase win. You know what I mean? That you got to look at it, especially early. We're gonna hit into just a second. I think you got to, kind of back Miami if you like them a little bit early in this next game. Too, I believe, because of that defense and how they've looked. But, yeah, the pick 6 I thought was huge. Ohio State was kind of driving there. And the key plays later, whether it was the defensive stands or Carson back, not turning the ball over, that great run I thought he had kind of backed up 3rd and 11 to get the first was huge. And, yeah, the offensive line got enough going and enough offense for them to win. Hats off to the Canes. And hats off to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
We'll get into 2 as well. I thought the comeback.
I'll give some credit to Oregon. The next quarterfinal, beating Texas Tech. Their defense was tremendous. A lot of that was Texas Tech just inept on offense, I thought. I mean, I don't want to totally rain on Oregon's parade, for that win, but I mean, that was pretty pathetic from the Texas Tech offense. The offensive line was horrific.
And the special teams. Yeah. The game plan for that was horrible. The no tackling. If it's too long, you do that in the pros. Pros don't need to tackle week to week, especially as the year goes on. But that whole kind of the lead up and everything to it was woof. That was rough. That was pretty bad. That was a tough watch. And the defense is on the field the whole time, kind of hanging around, even field goals, and just nothing they could do. Turnovers. Hats off to Oregon there.
Yeah, hats off to Oregon. Of course, Indiana, that was absolute domination and just absolute destruction at the line of scrimmage. That's what it was. That's essentially what it was with that Oregon and Indiana game, or Alabama, and Indiana game. That was just Indiana mauling Alabama in the trenches for pretty much 4 quarters, and both sides of the ball. Because Ty Simpson was under pressure. They couldn't run the football very much. Alabama, what else is new? That's been a season-long problem for them. And of course, Ty Simpson was under pressure, and then their run game just gashed Alabama's defense as that game
wore him down.
And then when the run game started working, there's Fernando Mendoza over the top, finding his receivers for a couple of big plays down the field.
Fernando. I got to hear that. All these clips we watch, the ABBA Fernando, I've heard that about 20 goddamn times.
Threw a touchdown that night, Fernando.
Yeah. So, Fernando.
Yeah, Fernando was great. He was, no doubt. And that's the key, right? The run game sets up the pass for Indiana. Mendoza's never been a guy that's asked in this offense to throw the ball 40 times a game. They're going to be looking to obviously be balanced. The run game is going to be a big part of what they do. And that's exactly he only threw the ball 16 times against Alabama last week. I mean, they rely a lot on Kalen Black and Roman Hemby, the great 1-2 punch, at running back. But when he was able to throw the ball, 3 touchdowns, only 2 incomplete passes, and they've got some great weapons. Let's be honest, the big 3 of Charlie Becker, Omar Cooper, and Elijah Surratt. Those are 3 pretty good receivers here for the Indiana Hoosiers. And then the last game was the classic. Georgia and Ole Miss. You can't ask for much better in a college football game than that. And look, I'll take half. I had more on the over, so the biggest bet of the game for me won, and that was the over with Georgia and Ole Miss. But I did take Georgia, and I laid the 6 with them in that game, and I actually split that with team total. So the team total hit, and the Georgia -6, obviously they lost outright, but actually they still went over their team total, Georgia, despite losing that game. But it was a crazy game back and forth. If you're Georgia, I don't want to fault them too much. Was their defense not Georgia-like? Yes. So much of that, you just got to tip your cap and say, that's just phenomenal quarterback play. And I'm not convinced any defense lined up, C-Mac, on the other side of Trinidad Chambliss in that game would have fared any better because of the plays he was making, rolling out of pressure, firing downfield on the run, trying to escape pressure, and being deadly accurate. It's not only he threw on the run, he was accurate. He put the ball pinpoint down the field in some of those plays he made. Chambliss he got in a zone late third quarter into the fourth quarter where he just caught fire and there was no stopping him. And I'm not convinced it would have mattered, C-Mac, what defense was playing against him.
I agree. I think you could see more of that in this next game, late in the second half.
There you go. With that in mind, C-Mac, let's get into it with the 2 semifinals here. And shout out to Sean McDonough. He was not good. He was great calling that game on the last week, that Sugar Bowl game.
He's always good. He's always been consistent.
He raises his game with the big moments and the big games. He does. He always does that. And he can do so many different sports, basketball, football. He does hockey. He's the lead voice of the NHL for ABC and ESPN. So like I said, he can do a lot. No, he was phenomenal behind the mic with McElroy for that Georgia and Ole Miss game. All right, we'll begin with the first of the 2 college football playoff semifinal matchups. This one, of course, is taking place inside the Fiesta Bowl, of course, in Arizona. We've got the Miami Hurricanes taking on the Ole Miss Rebels. This one on Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Right now, we got Miami around a 3-point favorite here in this game. 52, around that range is the total here in this one. Andrew G saying, I haven't seen one person on Ole Miss. You're about to see one person on Ole Miss. Well, you're about to see one person that could only look at Ole Miss here. I haven't moved on this yet. I'm waiting to see where this line's going to go. I think what C-Mac said, there's definitely some validity to it. But I think if you like Miami early, could be the better option with the Miami Hurricanes to maybe control the flow early. Let that physicality reign a little bit earlier in the game. Miami's defensive line's the concern here for Ole Miss. But
you got the quarterback.
It was supposed to be a concern for against Georgia's defensive front, too.
Yeah.
And when you have a guy like Trinidad Chambliss, who is just a great escaping, he's the great escape artist, as I like to say. He certainly was against Georgia. That can mitigate a lot of the strengths Miami's going to have with that ferocious pass rush here in this game. And he's certainly, in my opinion, I've seen enough now to know he's way more adept than Julian Sand to get out of trouble when the pocket.
Oh, for sure. Come on.
Yeah. It's not even a debate when you see that. So So Miami, you give them credit, for the Ohio State performance because they are a legit defense. There's no question about that. And you look at what they've got with the guys that can get up after it up front. Messidor had 2 sacks in that game. He's a real issue trying to keep that guy off the quarterback. But like I said, this is a different kettle of fish here for Miami's pass rush and that D front because Ole Miss has a quarterback that can simply, get after. There's a quarterback that can simply escape pressure, and he has shown now that he can be accurate on the run. I mean, many of those throws when he was on the run, it was just absolutely sensational. No question about that. So that's going to be more of a challenge for Miami as far as the pressure is great, and they're going to bring it, but you got a quarterback that can do a much better job at trying to negate that. I think on the flip side, when you counter it to Carson Beck and the Miami offense versus the Ole Miss defense, Carson Beck has to basically, in my opinion, C-Mac, has to replicate the game he played against Ohio State where he made good decisions, no turnovers, no mistakes, try to let this Miami offensive line wear Ole Miss out and wear them down with Mark Fletcher running the football gradually as this game goes on and just play good, sound, mistake-free football with good decision-making. That's the recipe for Miami. If they do that again here in this game, they're going to put themselves in position to win and advance to the national championship game. And I have to admit, their O-line was a concern for me going into the Ohio State game. They won that matchup. That really did surprise me that they won that matchup. I thought they would lose that matchup. I also thought Ohio State would lose the matchup of their O-line versus Miami's defensive line, and that was true. But I did not expect Miami's O-line to be as decisive against Ohio State's defensive line as they were. That was a legit surprise to me that they were that good controlling the line of scrimmage on offense in that game against.
Yeah, at times I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
maybe early and a little bit late. Yeah.
I would agree with that. So you look at that, and one thing you always, and you have to look at it too, going into this matchup, because the run game is going to be important. How does Ole Miss stack up as far as run defense is concerned? And when you look at the numbers, they have been at times vulnerable to ground games, and we have seen that. So 4.2 yards per carry for the season that they've given up on the ground, and 146.1 yards per game allowed on the ground. That's 66th in the country here. You know what's funny about this game? Miami outperformed my expectations offensively versus Ohio State. Yes, their defense shut down Ohio State completely in that game, and their D-line won the battle against Ohio State's offensive line. I think there's going to be pathways for Miami to move the football successfully here. Beck got confidence. Beck didn't make mistakes. Ole Miss has mediocre numbers against the run, which is key against a guy like Mark Fletcher, that Miami should be able to keep themselves in. That's another thing, too. If they can win on first down, keep Carson Beck in the offense at second and third and manageable, as opposed to second and third and long, that's going to make all the difference in the world for them. You counter that to the other side, Miami's defense is really that good, and they could certainly play great and dominant. And yes, could they put the clamps down on Ole Miss? Yeah, they could. But to me, this guy, Chambliss, outside the pocket, even if they bring that pressure, he's shown he can escape. And when he escapes, he's shown he can be unbelievably accurate down the field, throwing the football when he does escape the pocket. So when it's all said and done, from a side perspective in this game, at 3 or better, I'm leaning Ole Miss. My biggest concern is not even anything on the field, C-Mac, when it comes to backing Ole Miss here. It's the coaching situation that now there's a push and pull going on behind the scenes, because now it's time for LSU to start thinking about recruiting and trying to contact agents and trying to line up recruiting meetings and all this nonsense. And Lane Kiffin's trying to figure out what part of his staff that's still with Ole Miss for these playoff games, which part of that staff is going to join him at LSU to help with this recruiting mission. And it's just a little bit of an extra distraction and something, you don't want to see, although it sounds like, Charlie Weiss Jr. for sure is still sticking around for the entire playoff as offensive coordinator, and most of the staff is as well. But I know there's that internal conflict, if you will, and battle going on behind the scenes. And I'll say this, the coaching situation hasn't affected them so far, C-Mac. They beat down Tulane, and then, of course, they pulled a big upset against Georgia. So it's not like they've let the whole Lane Kiffin situation be this black fucking cloud over their head. They have not let it affect them negatively on the football field. So, yeah, it's a mild concern. But like I said, if you're going to give me +3 right now with this quarterback in particular, playing the way he is, Trinidad Chambliss, and I think his escapability neutralizes that Miami pass rush a bit. I could only look +3 or better here with Ole Miss in this game. I think this could get over. I think this could get over the total 52. And I know Miami is a very, can be a strong under team. And we know that defense. To me, I just don't love the matchup as much here for them here against a mobile quarterback, a deadly accurate quarterback on the run in Chambliss compared to Ohio State. I think Ole Miss offense is good enough to do a little bit more damage here in this game against Miami than Ohio State did. And on the flip side, I think Miami can put up points. I do. Because I think they're going to be able to run the football a little bit with some success. Again, Ole Miss is mediocre, not great against the run, and that will open things up and keep Carson Beck in situations where he's in manageable down and distance situations. So at 52, and the game's indoors, so you're not going to have any issues with weather. So at 52, I kind of lean over the total here in this first semifinal. C-Mac, your thoughts? Fiesta Bowl, semifinal, Miami, Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I think if you like Miami, I would just take them early. I would not take this team full game. When I go back through the season, whether it was the Notre Dame game, the defense laid a little bit, and we saw Ohio State finally get it going in the second half. I mean, SMU had 19, I think, in the fourth quarter. The game went to OT too. So, I mean, in second half and fourth and OT, 19 points. I would just jump on them. Try to get on Ole Miss here early. Take that defense. I wouldn't even mess with the full game. You could get under the field goal with Miami. As soon as they go up, I want Ole Miss here. If they're down a little bit, I want them from behind, throwing the ball and making noise with Chambliss.
Football from behind. They just proved it against Georgia, down at the half. Yep.
Yeah, it kind of adds up for both what their offense wants to do and how Miami wants to dominate early with their defense. And maybe try to run the ball depending on, what lead that they have. But the athletes that they have, Wallace, everyone, Chambliss. I mean, the guy, what was the school he went to? Ferris
State, Division II
Ferris
school.
State.
Yep.
Yeah.
Michigan State.
I mean, yeah, the story's been unbelievable. But Lacey, this whole team, I think they could take advantage of this team a little bit later in the game. So that's what I'm going to look to flat out in this one. I thought Miami, the last game we've already touched on it, was, just dominant. Saying just, he really just that bad pass was it, the pick six. It was that was like nightmare scenario, and it happened. And, but yeah, I think they'll be pumped. One thing too is Carson Beck. This team has seen him. Not everyone, just last year. Of course, Dart's the quarterback, a little bit different here offensively. But when he was on Georgia, they beat him, I think, 28-10 to double check. He threw for 186 and a pick. I'd get pressure on him as much as you can. If I was Miami, I'd lean to try to run the football, especially early, and maybe kill the clock. Keep him on the sideline, Chambliss, as much as you can, or especially early in the game. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good kind of chess match, this game and how it works out. And Carson Beck, I got to give him his stuff. He's been really, really good. And maybe he continues that. But when I see Miami now, a lot of love. They've taken care of business. Maybe they're a team of destiny. Now they're favorites. 3. There's a lot, 3.5 basically everywhere too. Makes me want to look the other way. But I think I'll wait. I'm just going to wait live to get on this, even though I do kind of like the 3.5 with Ole Miss. So that's where I'm at in this game. Should be good.
Can I talk C-Mac into this kind of a bet? It's the double result bet. You can find it at Bet365. I see it right in front of me right now. You can take Miami, Ole Miss, double result. So Miami first half, Ole Miss win the game second half, plus 600. Look at the price.
Yeah, I think it might be worth a little something.
Yeah, there you go. Because that's what it kind of feels like to me. I think Miami's strongest half, too, is first half. And then second half, because let's be honest, they were kind of hanging on at the end against Ohio State. Ohio State was definitely had a better second half than first half against Miami. And Miami was able to just hang on there. Let's also remember in that Miami-Ohio State game, the play that, was the difference in the game ended up being that pick six by Julian Sayin, where he just floated that, screen pass, to the outside, and it was undercut and returned the other way for a touchdown. That ended up being the difference in the end when you look at what the final score was. So, like I said, and there you go. And that's why it's so important for Carson Beck here to win the turnover battle. He didn't make any mistakes. Julian Sayin made the one mistake, and that was really the touchdown that was the difference in the football game.
Yeah. I think Wallace, I know he's off a big game, but he's their guy. I've backed him in a few props. What do I want to touch on? Do you like any props in this game before we get out of here? Do you like Fletcher, Tone, anything? I mean, you think there might be points? Do you think there's some value to some of these props?
Yeah, I'm more into Fletcher rush attempts than yards. Rush attempts with Mark Fletcher. I like as far as I like pass attempts for Chambliss too. I don't know how much success, if any, they're going to have running it against Miami, but I certainly think a lot of it's going to come through the air. I really do believe that, and he is going to be able to complete some passes here. I think because he has shown enough now to me that you don't have to worry about him being on point throwing the ball on the run. He has shown it like it's actually some of his best passes have been on the move, like instead of stationary. He's actually missed some throws when he's just standing in the pocket. And then when he's on the run and bootlegging and escaping pressure, it's like he can't miss. Puts the ball exactly where it needs to be. And that's quite the skill set that Trinidad Chambliss has here in this game. So like I said, keep an eye on his pass attempts and pass yards are 256.5. Pass attempts might be something I consider here as well. Not to mention Chambliss over 1.5 passing touchdowns, which is plus 125. That's pretty good when you look at it to get maybe 2 touchdowns, because more than likely he's going to get them through the air here in this game. So like I said, there's a couple props there that I am.
Which quarterback would you rather have?
Chambliss. Yeah.
Okay.
Chambliss. And I don't want to totally shit on Carson Beck. Did exactly what he has to do if Miami's going to win.
Yeah, because with their defense,
national championship, he did what he has to do. He did what he had to do against Ohio State.
I think he's due.
Yeah,
I think he's due for a couple picks. Yeah, maybe he's not.
I am too. You know what I think? Another thing that kind of has me looking more toward Ole Miss in this game too. The galvanization factor of this whole situation. The kids look like they're galvanized to say, "Screw you, Lane Kiffin. We're gonna
why not? Yeah,
this whole thing without you." They are playing with that kind of heart, that kind of resolve, that kind of guts, that kind of no quit mentality. They could have quit multiple times in that game against Georgia, especially with the way that first half was going. And they kept responding.
The fumble
kept responding.
Was bad. Yeah.
And Georgia would go down the field, and Ole Miss would answer right back. They look like they're playing with this "we will not be denied" effort and resolve throughout the entire team right now, saying, you don't think we can do anything without Lane Kiffin? Do you think he's gone and we're just going to fall apart? We'll show you. They've got that kind of chip on their shoulder that they're playing with right now. That's what I've noticed, no doubt, from this Ole Miss team.
If they win this, at least get started again. I mean, how much is our boy Lane really the guy?
And then they win the national championship game. This is going to end up with Lane Kiffin looking like one of the most biggest horse's asses you can imagine. That they basically went on this run and won the title with him gone and out of there. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be funny. I must admit, no question. So, like I said, yeah, and Carnero, their kicker's great for Ole Miss. No question about that. He won the game, of course, in the dying seconds against Georgia last week in the Sugar Bowl. That is definitely a plus for them, is the fact they've got a pretty good kicker. I think Miami does too, but Lucas Carnero certainly has had a great season as far as kicking for the Ole Miss Rebels, no doubt. All right, so that's the first of the 2 semifinals. Let's talk about the second one. This one on Friday night in the Peach Bowl down in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Oregon Ducks, Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana 3.5-point favorites, 46.5 the total here in this game. This is a rematch game because these teams played earlier in the regular season in Big Ten action. And it was, I think at the time you could make a case it was the most impressive win that the Indiana Hoosiers have had this season, of course, going to Eugene, putting 30 points on the board and beating the Oregon Ducks on their field 30-20 earlier this season. So you do have, obviously, now the one thing I'll say about these rematch situations come playoff time, and I say this about the NFL too, sometimes if it's a rematch situation, it's the team that loses that first game that goes the extra mile as far as prep for the next game, because they have more corrections, and adjustments to make.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that gives, I think, Oregon maybe a little bit of an intangible edge here in this game against Indiana. They're the team that lost that first meeting against Indiana as opposed to the other way around. So, Dan Lanning and his coaching staff, they know, hey, there's a lot of things we have to fix. If we're going to try to right that wrong and look for a different result this time around when we play against the Indiana Hoosiers. I think the main thing that sticks out to me about the first meeting is that it mostly was through the air. I thought they did a decent job, Oregon, containing the run game of Hemby and Black, which was a big component of beating Alabama for them last week. It was that the arm of Fernando Mendoza really made things happen. But then finding Elijah Surratt, who had a huge game for them in that win against Oregon. It was really the passing game that did the damage for the Hoosiers in that 30-20 win against Oregon. Oregon's defense, what do you make of them? Because it's a defense that I don't think was very impressive against James Madison. I thought, James Madison, the first 2-3 drives of that game, they were marching. They were marching the football down the field right into Oregon territory, and then they just continuously bogged down in the red zone and had to settle for field goals in those first few drives of the game. But they were moving it, make no mistake about it. And then, of course, Oregon, gets the big lead, and James Madison starts moving the football again later in the game. Now, the defense obviously was 1,000 times better last week in that dominant effort against Texas Tech. But how much of that was great Oregon defense versus borderline ineptitude on offense for Texas Tech? I'm trying to weigh that in my mind. How much of that was Oregon? Yeah, great defense, stifling defense, phenomenal performance. How much of that was bad play calling, the offensive line just sucking for Texas Tech? And let's be honest about Texas Tech's offense in the Big 12 this year against a schedule that wasn't as tough as the SEC teams or the Big 10 teams face, CMAC. There were times that their offense did bog down, and especially in the red zone. Even the BYU wins. They didn't beat BYU because the offense marched up and down the field. No, I mean, their defense shut down Bachmeier and BYU. It's not like their offense was lighting it up in the 2 wins against BYU. So I think there were some real fundamental problems with Texas Tech's offense last week.
You think they didn't change anything real quick? There was zero, no adjustment. They didn't speed, quicken the pace, nothing. It was like they were just out there running this horrible play calls. I was like, wow, this is no change, no adjustment, especially at half, I thought. Nothing.
No change. Now, the interesting part is the other aspect of this matchup. So the bottom line is, when I say all that, I think Indiana's offense here against Oregon's defense can still have success. I mean, they put 30 points on them in Eugene earlier this season. I see Indiana being able to have success here. And I think they'll do a better job running the football with Black and Hemby this time around. And as it did against Alabama, that can open things up for Fernando Mendoza to find Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Charlie Becker. I mean, these are 3 really good receivers there that Indiana has. And like I say, that could open things up. The critical, the more, I think the matchup that's really going to determine this game more is Oregon's offense versus Indiana's defense, because that's kind of a strength on strength here. We saw Dante Moore and the Oregon offense this year at times light it up. Last week, against Texas Tech, they kind of struggled. They did enough, but certainly, I mean, they had how many turnovers for Texas Tech? How many times was Baron Morton getting sacked and giving Oregon a short field on fumbles and turnovers? And Oregon, it was a struggle to turn those plus territory opportunities off turnovers, CMAC, into touchdowns. They had a real hard time doing it. And eventually the dam burst later in the game because Texas Tech's defense was just so damn tired, being on the field the whole game, that eventually they wore down late. But I wouldn't say it was a great offensive performance at all from Oregon last week against Texas Tech. And Texas Tech's strength is their defense. We do have to remember that. Texas Tech does have a legitimately very good defense, and they did show that. It's the only reason that, that game was still Tech hanging around, even though they did absolutely nothing, on offense. But Oregon's offense here is facing an Indiana defense that, as we saw last week against Bama, they don't make it easy to run it against you. And I think that's going to be the interesting element here, because Oregon is so much of what they do is based on being able to control the game offensively with the run. It's a team that runs the ball, CMAC, 33rd in terms of rush attempts per game, 37.5. They're 28.4, 79th in the country in pass attempts per game. So we know what they want to do. They want to be run first, this Oregon team on offense. But here's Indiana coming into this game, CMAC, with 2.8 yards per carry allowed this season, run defense, 73.7 rushing yards per game this season. That's number 3 in the country, rushing yards per game allowed. It's not going to be easy for Oregon to get that ground game going.
It wasn't in the first matchup.
It wasn't either. They couldn't run it at all. Not a smell from the run game. Not a lick from the Oregon ground attack versus Indiana in that first meeting. So Dante Moore against an opponent of this caliber, and this is not just a good coaching staff. This is an all-time great coaching staff in college football that Cignetti has. All you have to do is you have to watch some of his press conferences, talking about how he stays in the office from like 7:30 to like midnight every day. And I said, I don't force the coaches to do it, but damn it, I'm doing it. I'm staying in the office all day. And he says, I'm convinced that you have to work to get better every day, because he said, it was a great quote when this was back when he first got introduced as the Indiana head coach. You have to work to get better every day, because if you're not working to get better every day, you're going to fall behind and other people are going to catch your ass. And that's exactly what he said in that great quote. I mean, this guy is obsessed with football. He's obsessed with being great. He's obsessed with making sure he's prepared, that all his players and his entire football team is prepared on a game in and game out basis. And he took a guy, CMAC, in that Rose Bowl, in Kalen DeBoer, who knows his way around winning college football playoff games and having his team well prepared. And he took that guy to the cleaners. That's Kalen DeBoer. That's a guy that's won a lot of games at this time of year. And Kurt Cignetti just destroyed him in the X's and O's and the coaching and the game plan and everything, really, in that game against Alabama last week. So at the end of the day, CMAC, before I hand it to you, I'll say one last thing. Yeah, you got to lay more than a field goal. Yeah, recency bias says this might be not the time you want to jump on Indiana. We just saw them blow out Alabama. And maybe now you kind of want to go the other way because now it's a huge betting bandwagon on Indiana after what they saw last week. I can't do it. This is a one-way game for me. It's Indiana or pass. I cannot and I will not step in front of Kurt Cignetti and this Hoosiers team. I know it's Oregon, trying to avenge the earlier loss. I just don't know if Oregon's got the tactical adjustments or the physical chances on the field of changing the outcome this time around. Against Indiana, the way Indiana played, not just in the SEC championship game, but also go back to the Big Ten championship game and look at how that defense just destroyed the line of scrimmage in that game too against Ohio State. So, like I said, it's Indiana or pass for me. I'm debating what I want to do because I'm kind of leaning. I like Indiana to win the game. Do I lay the points? Do I take Indiana team total over, considering that they got 30? Against Oregon in the regular season. And when you look at the team total here in this game with with Indiana, the current number on the Indiana team total is 24.5 in most spots. I mean, that's doable. I think there's a chance they could get over that. Or do I take Oregon team total under? Because I'm kind of leaning in that direction for this football game as well. That Oregon team total, 20.5. There's some books with 21.5. Shop around. Pinnacle, Caesars, Bet99. Couple books still have this at 21.5 for Oregon's team total. If I can get 21 in the hook, that Oregon team total under looks mighty nice to me. Because I don't know if they're getting more than 21 points here against because they couldn't run the football a damn against Indiana the first time, and I don't know if that changes here. C-Mac, what do you think here? Peach Bowl semifinal, Oregon, Indiana.
Yeah, if they get that, it's got to be just the adjustments need to be huge. That's the biggest thing in this game is the rematch, which I don't like. I mean, Oregon hadn't lost at home in 3 years, something like that, a little over it. They were 6.5, 7 points, basically 7-point favorites in that game. Now on a neutral, Indiana's 4. That always gives me from there to there. This is just big of a move.
Difference from one matchup to the next one. Yes, head to head.
Oh yeah, I always look at that, and because Indiana's just been that dominant. I mean, what's the lone team that's got more than 20? The Oregon got to 20, with one offensive touchdown. By the way, we'll get into how good Finney, how great he was last game. He was the pick 6 on Mendoza in that game in the second half. Oregon didn't score an offensive touchdown in the second half. I think they just had a field goal, 2020. And then that's the best thing about Indiana. They wear teams down, I think. That offensive line and defensive line is top tier. The linebackers, the whole thing. They'd be really, really good. The success they had was they do need to run it. Because I remember it was like a play action, kind of just a inside slot, straight forward. They hit him deep. Oregon did in that first matchup for the touchdown. They're going to need to use their speed to do that here and kind of disguise, I think both these coaches are going to come prepared. I know it's tough for me. I think Indiana's the better team. I just hate the rematch here. I think things could go down. And more, by the way, in that game. He was I think we had 186, two picks as well, especially in the second half. A couple tip ball picks, I believe, that game. Because I watched it, and I went back and even watched all the highlights of that game. So, yeah, it's just, both teams dominated their games earlier. I just think this game's close. What do you think? To me, I don't know if Oregon, they need to win a low-scoring game, but that favors Indiana. Maybe not to cover, but, I just don't know if their defense at the end, which I talked about. I am on a prop here. As good as Finney is, I think they'll move him around. You talked about Cooper. I'll take Surratt again. He had 8 for 121. There's so many back shoulder throws Mendoza makes to him.
That's
their prototype
chemistry he's developed.
Yes,
Mendoza with Surratt. Yes, 100%.
And they'll use him as much as Finney might be on him. I got to take over. It's 48.5. I think he gets him the ball. He's going to get plenty of targets in this match. That's a prop. I've already bet. So I'm on that there. I don't know if he has 8 for 121 and a touchdown like the first matchup, but I think he can definitely have success. I think this is kind of a rock fight, but this total, when we touch on the total.
Well, here, this is a pace-driven total at 46. But these are two just incredibly slow teams on offense, pace-wise, and methodical.
Yeah.
Both of them. They bleed the play clock.
They do bleed the clock.
Snap. Yep. It's not the Chip Kelly Oregon offense anymore. They're one of the slower pace teams in the country, Oregon.
Well, they're spread, but yeah, they're slow on. Yeah, they run the whole play clock. They're they're not get up and go, fast pace, and the defenses are good. That's why we have this. This is I don't know if it's a bargain, but I think we see more field goals. More field goals than we did in the first matchup, and a couple easy scores. Like I talked about, the pick 6 and a few other short fields for Indiana in the second half. So I just hate it. The rematch. The rematch has got me. This makes me want to look Oregon. Are they good? I think they're right there. This defensive line is really good. We just saw how good this defense can play. And we just saw this game was 2020, even though it was in Oregon or in the first matchup, and kind of got beat up. The turnovers in Indiana just put them to sleep in the fourth quarter. So yeah, this is a wait for me. So I definitely have that prop. I already bet.
Surratt, Elijah Surratt, Indiana, over receiving yards. Yep.
Yeah, 48.5. I'm on it. Yeah,
I think that's a good one too. I mean, I do, because you have to look at it. I know last week Becker was a guy that did a lot of the heavy lifting in the passing, in the receiving game, I should say, against Alabama in that 38-3 win. Charlie Becker had 51, led them in receiving yards at 51 with a touchdown. Surratt had 40 with a touchdown, so he was behind Omar Cooper, and Charlie Becker. But if you look at the matchup against Oregon, who was the one that feasted the most against that Oregon secondary? Elijah Surratt. he's the one that had the big day. So
that line's so good. They got to get sacks, like coverage type sacks, I think.
Yeah.
And this Oregon defense can. I mean, we saw what SC like during the year put up some points. I know we talked about the James Madison game, but yeah, this should be good. I know everyone. I don't know. This is just the wait for me. I really like. I kind of like the Oregon, the team total under, but I don't love it. Everything says they're not going to get there, right?
It does, yeah.
But freaky shit happens. Turnovers are huge. They were in that first matchup.
Yeah.
So, and those are just things you can talk about and everything, but in the end, turnovers are going to happen.
They scored 23 points in a game where they had the ball for 38 minutes. They had the ball for 38 minutes, way more than half the game, and they still only scored
in the first game.
Points. No, last week against.
Oh
Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I'm in Indiana. That first matchup, I think, held the ball right a bunch.
Yeah, the head game. Yeah, the 30.
Yeah, the head game a little bit.
It was, I mean, last week.
First
Oregon,
downs.
Yeah, it was 33-27. It was a little, not as lopsided, but still, Indiana did have an advantage in the time of possession in the 30-20 win against Oregon earlier this season. But yeah, I like that Surratt prop. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, and I'm kind of, you notice I didn't say over in this game because I don't really like the over in this Oregon-Indiana. As someone that predominantly bets overs when it comes to totals, my thought is you've got a better chance of seeing the Miami Ole Miss game go over the total than this one. That's kind of what I see here. Because I was impressed with Miami's offensive line. Like I said, if that offensive line plays against Ole Miss like they did against Ohio State, they will be able to move the football on that Ole Miss team. But like I said, I think Ole Miss will have more success than Ohio State did offensively because of the mobility and escapability of Trinidad Chambliss against that Miami defensive front. All right, great stuff. That was great. That was a hell of a breakdown. Lots of stuff, lots of numbers. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Robert Carlson, one of my favorites, is on in the chat for a lot of the shows I do, including, of course, the Ice Guys, which I will be doing next in just a few minutes. Andrew G, FB Gotti, Joey Moses. Appreciate all you guys joining us. Gold Juice 7. Appreciate everybody here in the chat. PlayStation 3 gameplay. Thanks to everyone. Hit the like button. Become a member if you aren't already. Member of the Hitting the Books YouTube channel. We got members-only shows twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific, where we hit everything on the sports betting board on the members-only shows. So make sure you check those out Wednesday and Friday. And Friday in particular, that show this week at 5 p.m. Eastern when we do our full extensive NFL wild card weekend betting preview. I'm excited, looking forward to that.
Me too. NFL running well. NFL, when the NFL is good, I think my life's better.
I know it is. I'm having an all-time great NFL season for me.
I know you're killing it.
Like, this is one of the best seasons I've ever had. It's just week in and week out. It's plus. I see green plus units. That's insane. That's difficult to do. I'm telling you, that's not normal to be 62% for the full NFL season. That's not normal.
Oh yeah.
And for me to be at that percentage, I mean, wow.
Those years will happen
like this again, but it's damn hard.
Yeah, it is for the full year, but because some years they're just they are a little bit different. They're all not the same. Last year, favorites won at an unbelievable clip.
Yeah.
I think the most in 25, 30 years. So that had me go running to more props.
Hold that thought, Robert. Asking about the Bills and the Jags. Trust me, we'll get into it on Friday, in depth. Every single wild card weekend game. But like I said, it's definitely looking forward to it. Shout out to everyone again. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Our next show, by the way, will be Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Tomorrow we'll bring you a college basketball Hitting the Books show. Pretty good CBB card tomorrow.
And we'll bring back Mondays.
Yes.
Here shortly.
Yeah. We're going to determine when we do the national championship game show for the college football. It'll be either next Monday or the following Monday, the day of the game. We'll determine that. We'll figure that out if we want to do it. But it'll be one of those Mondays. And then moving forward, we'll get another extra college basketball show going for you on Mondays after that, late January, February, and then, of course, into March when all the tournament action gets underway. All right, C-Mac, let's wrap this thing up. Final thoughts. before we shut it down?
Final thoughts. Yeah, Andrew. I mean, they all see. I mean, you bet on Indiana the last 2 years. I think people want to stick to it. I don't blame them. When I see it, I think they can win. I hate the rematch, but I mean, when I see the best football team, the best football coach, sometimes you just got to roll with them, maybe, in the end. So
for me, it's just get out. Now, it doesn't mean I'm loading up on Indiana, but for me, it's get out of the way when it comes to Indiana. I definitely don't want any part of fading them.
You're going to be playing Fernando,
yeah.
with your win, your winning ticket.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Appreciate all you guys in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. If you want, more shows, all NFL, which those shows I think we've done really, really well. Become a member if you can. If not, just be here when you can on the regular shows. We love you. Thank you so much. That's it.
That's a wrap for Connor Mack. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the college football playoff semifinals. Good luck with your wagers, and we'll see you Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, for the college basketball Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Peace.